When did you realize you had something special with the Bernie and Sid show?
Well, I knew right away. I mean, listen, I remember when I got fired back in 2005 and had to move to Florida. I kept in touch with Bernard all those years, and we always said we should do a show together. We had never done a show together before, but we knew that the two of us together would be really, really good. So we kept in touch, and he would email me and call me, and I would do the same over the 10 years. And then, of course, August of 2015, on a whim, basically, I decided to email Craig Schwab. He's the PD at WNEW. I had even forgotten, by the way, that he was my assistant at ABC. I had forgotten he was my assistant PD back at WNEW in 2000. So 16 years prior, I actually worked with Craig Schwab, but I forgot about that. Sent him an email and said, listen, me and Bernard are still very, very close. I know Bernard is doing a lot of fill-in shows over the summer and during holidays. I don't know what you guys are doing for fill-in guys, but, Craig, I've got a loyal New York following. Craig is very good friends with Mark Chernoff. I've got a very loyal New York following. I know what's going on. I know you think of me as a sports guy, but here are 3 interviews. And I sent him an interview with me and Chuck Todd, me and Mike Huckabee, and me, and I forget the other presidential candidate. May have been Marco Rubio, I forget. And I sent him 3 interviews, and I said, listen to this, because I know you think of this a dopey sports guy.
Yeah.
And if, in fact, you like it, I'm the guy for you. I've got the New York. I love New York. I've got the bravado. I've got the fans already built in. You got nothing to lose. Give me a shot. And that was August. I can tell you that, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after that, we got our show, our first tryout show together, me and Bernard. And then 4 months after that, we got 2 more shows. And it took about 6-7 months between the first time I emailed Craig Schwab to actually get a full-time gig in New York. At the time, 640 decided to let me go back in December 28th of 2015. They let me go. Because it was August of 2015, excuse me, not 16, when I contacted Schwab. And less than a month after that, I was working in New York City. But I knew right away when we got on the air that we were going to be good, because I knew that no one else did what we did. Evan and Joe on FAN, our competition, I guess, they're knee-deep in the sports minutiae, which for me got very boring over the years. Mark Simone, WOR, gets better ratings than us. He does. He's on a big-time station with Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh on the Mets. But he does a very straightforward political show. I knew that me and Bernard, because of our age, because of our likes and dislikes, would be able to, in our history together, both comedic and serious, would be able to do something that no one else does. So I knew about a month in, Gill, and we had something real good going on, and we've gotten better. The show is gaining more popularity, and I can tell you that we are the future of WABC, no question.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I look forward to watching you guys grow and perhaps even being a part of it. If I can, you got the extra hour, and I'm sure more and more cards will be coming into play in the future. And I agree with you that the mix is really unparalleled. And I listen to mostly sports talk, actually all sports talk except the Bernie and Sid show. But it's becoming easier and easier almost. And I mean this in a good way, to do what you guys do, because I feel like the worlds of sports and politics are colliding on a more regular basis than ever before. You have the Kaepernick incident, LeBron's being outspoken, James Dolan is exposed or I don't know, exposed is the wrong word, but he contributes to Trump's campaign, and now everyone talks about that. You've been in sports for a really long time, and you followed politics for a really long time. Have you ever seen those worlds clash more than they are today?
No, because I've also never seen such the country clash more than it does today. I mean, I've never seen such vitriol and visceral reaction from the left and from the right, and that includes ball players. Like you said, LeBron James won't stay in Donald Trump's hotel when the Cavaliers come to New York to play the Knicks. He's been outspoken. J.R. Smith has been outspoken. Many, many others. So really, come on. Really, all sports is a microcosm of what's going on across the country today. This is our society. People are pissed off. People are more outspoken. And every little thing seems to blow up into a huge story, whether it's Charles Oakley getting thrown out of the Garden. That works for us because we're a local New York show. You see, the beauty is we try to be as local as we can. So whether a story is about sports, I don't care if it's a guy masturbating on the subway. If it's a New York story, it works for me and Bernard. And that's also where the show, I think, really has gained some popularity, in that we are not just about politics and straight-up news. If anything happens in New York, if David Wright gets hurt for the Mets, if the Rangers, I know this is a crazy one, but if the Rangers are going to play for the Stanley Cup, That's going to be on the Bernie and Sid show. So
Yeah.
it's not just the fact that, yes, LeBron James is talking about Hillary Clinton, and you mentioned a few other things, Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. If anything happens in New York City, we're going to talk about it. And the other shows, especially on the sports shows, they can't guarantee you that.
But early in your career, and you mentioned this already, you worked with Craig Carton in Cleveland, and I want to kind of get into this transition a little bit. You wanted to stick to sports, right, when you worked with Craig?
No, actually, I hired Craig. It's a long story, but I came to New York in 2000 with a guy named Scott Kaplan.
Yeah.
Scott Kaplan and I worked together for 3 years down in Florida, and we started our career together at CBS Sportsline, strictly on the Internet, and we had a whole Internet radio station. Scott and I were the headliners. We did the afternoon show, but the midday show down there was C.J. Silas, had just gotten fired from WIP in Philadelphia, Craig Carton. So I got to know Craig down at CBS Sportsline in Florida. Make a long story short, when Scott and I came to New York in 2000, Scott got fired about 6 months in, and the PD there, Jeremy Coleman, who's now at XM Sirius, was looking for a placement to work with me. We tried out Jay Glazer. We tried out John Riggins. We tried out Eddie Ift, the comedian. We tried out a bunch of people. Blaine Ensley, worked with Rocky Allen at PLJ. And then one day I was in Jeremy's office, and I saw a resume from Craig Carton. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I worked with this guy down in Florida. He's a very, he's an affable guy, funny guy, has charisma, pretty good on the air. Let's bring in Craig. And they hired Craig. Craig will never admit this. He's like Francesa. Based on my recommendation, I hired Craig to be my partner at WNEW. Now, in the end, he stabbed me in the back, and I ended up leaving NEW and going to WFAN. But that's how Craig Carton and I got together 17 years ago at WNEW.
Yeah. And when did you start integrating politics into your radio shows? That I know.
I would say about 4 years ago. When I went to 640, I did some of it at 790, the ticket. They really didn't like it. I did a little more at 560 WQAM. Joe Bell was a little better with it. But even those guys would bitch and complain. It wasn't until it became the morning show at 640. In the beginning, the boss there, Steve Lappa, he wasn't thrilled about it either, but he never really stopped me. And then he started to see it paying dividends. Big name guests coming on a regular basis. Our show being written up in trade magazines and papers for stuff outside of sports. So while Joe Rose was talking to, who knows, I don't know, some wide receiver from the Dolphins, Brian Hartline, I'm talking to Chuck Todd, and we got a lot more attention. So Steve Lapp eventually came over and said, you know what, you're doing something big here. So it was really 2013, 2014, my last gig down in South Florida, 640 Sports. And the two guys I had working with me, Eric Lengel and Steve Zemak, were so good. They enjoyed doing it as well. They got into the whole political thing, too. It was a great show. That was really the time, 2013, 2014, at 640 Sports.
Did you ever feel like you were alienating half of your viewership? Florida, it's a swing state.
Yeah,
but
I don't care about that. If you're too immature, you won't listen. Anybody, you can say what you want about me. You can say I'm a jerk, I'm obnoxious, I'm this, I'm that. I find it hard to believe they're going to tell me I'm not a talented guy. Being the opportunities I've been given, working now at WINS, WNEW, WABC, and WFAN in New York City, and hosting morning shows at all three major Miami stations. When somebody says, Sid, you suck, you're bad on the air, it's laughable. Those guys who say that are the guys that either don't agree with me on sports or don't agree with me politically. I don't need those guys. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't mind listening to a radio show where I disagree with somebody or somebody's a Democrat if I'm not. To me, it's not about that. It's about, are you thought-provoking? Are you entertaining? Are you funny? How do you get along with the guests and the callers? When you do all that well, that's a really good radio show. So if you're going to be immature enough to say, Sid sucks, or I'm not going to listen because he may say something bad about Donald Trump, I don't watch anyway.